Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hoyt Bow Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Farris. Got my sidekick, Evan Williams, today.
Take 3. 100 today. Woo!
Are we really doing it this time?
Oh yeah,
we're gonna do it.
Yep.
We're gonna do it.
Oh,
Yeah, we're getting through it.
No,
we're getting through it.
Like, is this are we on the podcast now?
This is live.
This is live.
we're not going for a fourth attempt at this.
Okay. All right. Well,
Let's get it.
Evan and I obviously have been screwing some things up this morning, and had to try 2 or 3 times to get the podcast going. And our special guest today, his mama says he is her special boy, is Yahsti Perkins killer. Me and Evan, good buddy from up in Montana. What's up, Yahst? Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you guys, man. Enjoying the day, enjoying Montana today.
Well, good. Have you got any moisture? I know that you guys have been hurting up there.
Oh man, it's been February was scary. We had 3 fires in 2 weeks.
Oh gosh.
In February. Who expects that in February, right? Yeah, but we got some moisture finally. We got about half a foot of snow a week ago and just got some snow the other day, and all of a sudden today it's 65. So
wow.
Welcome to Montana.
Yeah. Southern Montana. Man, you live in a pretty incredible place. I got to go up there and visit Yahsti last year and do a turkey hunt with him, and we're going to talk about turkey hunting primarily on this thing. But before we get into all of that, Yahsti is kind of known as he's an accomplished bow hunter. But I'd have to say, more than anything, he's known as an elk hunter, isn't he, Evan? Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, yeah, I'd say elk probably more than anything else, but just the guy known for filling tags.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's moose, caribou, apparently now turkeys.
For sure. And
dude, I tell you, one thing that people always ask me, what's your secret? Like, man, you got to be short and ugly, dude. That's all you need. You got to be short and ugly.
Well, you got 2 others in that class with you today.
Evan qualifies.
Every day of my life. It is a struggle.
Oh man.
Well, no, that terrain that you live in up there is pretty spectacular. It's not exactly what people think of when they think of Montana. It's a really diverse place where you live. You've got really thick cottonwood bottoms, and then it goes up into kind of sparse rolling foothills, and then even up into some ponderosa pines and stuff like that. It's pretty cool country.
Oh man, definitely very sweet. I enjoy it. I love living here, man. It's our little secret piece of heaven,
Yeah. Well, the other thing Yahsti is known for is he's a world champion powwow dancer, and man, one of the highlights of my trip up there was kind of getting introduced to some of your Native American culture. And like Evan, we started to talk about this, but me and Yahsti we're up there hunting, and one day we drive over to the res, and we go into the store to get some food for the afternoon or whatever. And I just happened to look over, and there's like this parfait, like a pudding parfait cup. And I grabbed it and picked it up, and I was like, ooh, this looks good. Butterscotch pudding cup. And Yahsti's like, that's your new Indian name.
That's your Indian name, Butterscotch pudding cup.
And the rest of the time that I was there, Yahsti called me Butterscotch pudding cup.
That's right, man. You got to get a name when you're here.
And
it is a lifelong thing for you now. Like, it's not just going to be coming from Yahsti. I'm going to bring it up. My goal, everybody listening, my goal is that every single podcast you hear from here on out, you will hear Danny refer to as Butterscotch pudding cup.
Butterscotch pudding cup.
Well,
man,
it was super fun. And he actually, so what dialect did you taught me how to say it, or basically in in
So
Indian.
yeah, I am Waccamaw and Metawakan Sioux. What people know as Sioux, right?
Mhm.
It's Dakota branches, but I'm that, and I can relate with you guys too. I'm about a quarter white, so
Yeah.
I kind of intermingle well, man.
Well, dude, he
You're
taught me
you're
how
as
to
white
say
as
it.
I am Indian, dude. Sorry.
Oh goodness gracious, man! Gosh dang it! Oh man, I like it. I like it. So yeah, man, I loved having these guys up here. They were amazing. Like you always want to give everybody the best hunt, the best time, not just the hunt, the best time you can give them, and like that is key. So when they came, I was so worried about animals, behaving the way we needed them to, and you can't control that, but luckily they did, and man, we had a great time. The humor was just there. It was
Well,
all the time, even when we were supposed to be serious. We couldn't, it was always a good time.
dude, that we were talking just the other day, Yahsti, about you know the prerequisite number one for any hunt for me is I'm supposed to be having fun. Now, every hunt,
We just talked about that.
you can get into a grind here and there and things like that, and it can be physically hard. But man, like if you're not having fun and having fun with the people that you're with, um, what the heck are you doing? You know?
Yeah, man.
And when we went up there, dude, we just had fun. Like
That's
it
yeah.
was we had a blast the entire time. It wasn't necessarily that like the turkeys were cooperating every single day. We had some rough spells in there, but it didn't matter. And if when you're having enough fun like that, it's like, man, punching a tag is just the icing on the cake. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
for
Well,
sure, man.
Yost, why are you having fun with him and you're cussing me out when we're hunting together?
A little bit, a little bit,
Danny,
a little bit.
Yosti,
When did you two
Yosti,
hunt together?
what is the highest point you have been to elevation wise on a hunting trip?
With Evan Williams in Colorado, he put me on a death march. We found elk at like
We
Mount Everest height.
we went 3,000 vertical after this herd, just like, oh, there they are, boom, and took off.
Straight up.
Dude, how
First,
long
Straight
ago
up.
was that?
A couple years ago.
3 years ago now, I think. And literally, I looked up, I was like, hey,
And
Yosti, we're going after that bull.
the best part about it was we were at 10,000, like we were at 9,500 already. And
Really?
the elk were, oh yeah, it was atrocious.
So I take it neither of you filled the tag because I didn't hear about any elk dying when that happened.
Oh, that was
It was
that was
you two almost
We
died.
got we
yeah.
we got close. In fact, we chased that bull up a ridge, and then down into the next basin. And at one point, he ripped out a bugle, and I was on a bench, and it was pretty much a rock ledge that dropped off. And he let out a bugle and started raking a pine right below me at 18 yards.
Like right
And
here,
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
went over
yeah,
the
yeah.
edge, came to full draw, and as I came down, he had 50 to 60 cows with him, and they just broke loose through the timber, and I'm sitting there at full draw watching them run.
Yeah. Was this in the area that I know about, Evan? I don't want to say the name of it or anything too close, but
No, not over there.
no, different place.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Steep
Okay,
drop hill.
our level, the ground, hell. We were right there. We were right there. We were right there.
We got up to the point where there was nothing more green. We were above tree line, in the rock and the scree, trying to come around on this herd and come down on top of them. And I look down, and there's Yahsti, just, red man will get there. Give me a second.
I'm too stupid to give up, but it just takes me a little longer to get there, man.
Well,
Oh, we had a blast.
that's the man. That's what makes it memorable. I
That's
mean,
right.
like you said, it doesn't even really matter is if you were having fun with the right people,
That's facts of life,
you
Yep.
man.
know.
Yep.
But on this podcast, even though Yahsti here is really known as an elk hunter, we're going to talk about turkey hunting. And one of the things that I've always found interesting about turkey hunting, especially out west, is how so many of the bow hunters out west kind of disregard turkeys. Turkeys get a bad rap out west. There's some guys that,
Completely.
you know, yeah, like they don't they it's like they just don't get it. It's big out in the Midwest, it's big in the East. That's where you get guys that are, super super hardcore turkey hunters. But out here in the West, man, for whatever reason, there's a lot of guys that just, don't think much of it. Um,
I was guilty of it, man, till last year. I took it for granted. I'm not gonna lie about it.
yeah,
You got to call a spade, man. I was guilty of it. Any turkey, is like, all right, well, I'll make a couple calls, and the first Jake that comes in is gonna get it,
yeah,
and all of a
Hey,
sudden, like,
he's got like 12
go
kids.
ahead.
He's got Thanksgiving dinner coming in. He's taking the opportunity.
Valid, valid point, man. Yeah, like, I mean, it was, you took it for granted because you got into birds that were just young and just didn't know any better. They come into the first call, and then you get on to some educated birds or uh, start understanding, the talk. You start watching this guy. Man, let me give you a an up close of what happened. We're taught don't move. We're taught be still, don't move, don't talk loud, don't nothing when
yeah.
you're hunting. When you're turkey hunting, don't move because they're gonna bust you. You got to be real still. All of a sudden, Danny's like, I'm gonna go kill that bird, and I was like, man, that bird's out in the middle of the field. He don't have a chance. He's got hens. In my mind, it's going. It's like, well, that's not the way I hunt him, and this is a different part of Montana. He'll figure it out though. All of a sudden, I
That
see
bird's going to
Danny,
educate him.
and all of a sudden, here's Danny and Olin crawling across an open field with a decoy, and I'm going. It's not possible. They're gonna run. They're gonna run. They're gonna run. And I watch all of a sudden this bird starts paying attention to Danny's decoy and starts firing up at his decoy. And I'm like, man, how does this even? Something's not clicking in my head right. I'm stuck on stupid here. And he kills the bird. So I'm like, that that wasn't possible. Everything that we're taught just went out the window. I'm serious. Like, run towards the bird, put this thing in front of him, and you'll kill him. And I was
Well,
like,
it
I
wasn't
couldn't
it
believe
wasn't
it, dude.
exactly running. It was more like butt scooting. you know?
But
But it's
across an open field was the coolest thing,
yeah,
man.
and it's
To get that interaction just blew my
and
mind.
it's funny like
Well,
I've Danny and I have both been in situations where you've got birds that are hung up either out in the middle somewhere or they're flocked up, and you can show them a decoy with a blind and just be set up, and everything is perfect and they could care less. But as soon as you start
yeah,
making a
Right.
yeah,
move at them, okay, I don't like this anymore. And dude, even a couple years ago, I made a
Exactly.
move on a couple 2.5-year-olds. They had some hens with them, and literally, they turned 180 degrees because I had closed the distance 100 yards on them, and all of a sudden, it was like, nope, you're not one of our group, and we're coming. And 3 2.5-year-old birds hit full strut, and here they come, just power walking in. It's like, all right, I'm going to do what Danny wants to do before he does, and that's kill one with my arrow before it gets off the string. And I couldn't wait that long. I let it go quicker, but it changed their mindset instantaneously when all of a sudden something's coming at them instead of just sitting off in the distance. And dude, it 180 degrees, here they come.
Dude, it
yeah,
changed my whole perspective. It changed my whole perspective on hunting. Like, not only did it change my perspective on the turkeys, it changed my outlook on how I want to hunt other animals. Like I'm very happy. I know I'm blessed to have had the fortunes that I have had, but this just added an entire new realm of hunting to me. You know what I mean? I went on a caribou hunt in August. Danny goes, "Take this decoy with you." We would not have killed that caribou had it not been for the decoy. I waved the decoy at these caribou that were half mile away.
Yeah.
Walked with it, made it disappear, brought it back up, made it disappear again. The entire herd turned and walked to us. Had it not been for the decoy and understanding, man, you can move, you expose yourself
Yeah.
or expose the decoy. It just it's a different fire. And I've never experienced it. I'm so like I'm into it now, man. I'm all into it. Turkeys, beware.
Well, we're talking
You know,
about I was using a bow mounted decoy on that trip.
right?
And, the vast majority of my turkey career has been, hunting them out of ground blinds or maybe a natural blind or just trying to hide over by a tree and get them called into static decoys that are put out in front of you. And it's still a tactic that works very well. I think that the biggest mistake that most turkey bow hunters make when they're using a blind is they get trapped into this notion that your blind needs to be there, like you can't really be mobile with a ground blind, which is completely false. Like when we're ground blind hunting, we're carrying a ground blind usually on a backpack of some sort. We take it out of whatever blind bag it's got and we strap it onto that backpack, and we're headed out and we're basically elk hunting those turkeys. So, we'll be calling and trying to get a gobbler to fire off. And when he fires off, if you've practiced and you know how to properly set up most pop up ground blinds, you should be able to get that blind set up, your decoys set, and all your gear and ready to shoot within 60 seconds.
A minute.
Yeah. And, that's kind of a lost art that was taught by the double bull boys way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since they've gone away, I really don't see it anywhere anymore. But since those days, we've discovered bow mounted decoys. And when you're turkey hunting with a bow mounted decoy, um, there's some things to know. You got to use some common sense about where you're hunting. You don't want to go out and during a shotgun season onto, public ground and hide behind a turkey decoy. But
Oh
if you're
man, yeah.
if you're hunting private ground and you know who's around and you just use a little common sense with the thing, it gives you some options that didn't exist before, especially during that kind of middle of the day when turkeys don't want to really do much, or when they're out in the middle of a wide open field, like that bird that you were just talking about, Yahsti. That bird had 40 hens and one tom.
That was
And
what was amazing.
yeah,
Like all those eyes, and
yeah,
I'm going, this ain't gonna work.
yeah,
And all of a sudden he gets the bird killed, and I'm like, okay, I'm back to school. I wanna hear everything this guy has to say, man. So we get on another bird. We leave the fields
yeah,
and we go into the mountains. And man, mountain birds are fun. It's just fun. It's a different thing. And I'm going, okay, cool. And we heard, we actually heard it going on, and then we got to watch this tom chase another tom off. Danny goes, I'm not into, I wasn't into reading and understanding what was going on. So, I'm taking the back seat, trying to learn what I can. Danny goes, we got to get after that bird right there. That bird that ran this bird off, he's aggressive. He just want to fight. We'll kill that bird. If we can get him to come in, we'll
It's
kill
like
that
antelope.
bird. And
Yep.
oh man, it was amazing, like how aggressive this bird was to the other bird. And we get up to right where they just were, but that bird had just, he just got all his hens. He just won his fight, and he was content leading his hens off. The other bird now, the bird that did lose the fight, was listening to these hen calls, and he was like, okay,
yeah.
well,
We
maybe the
we were
hens are
kind
still
of in a
there.
bowl, and the one bird had left going. I think he followed his hens off up that creek, and
Right.
he left the area. So we didn't know whether that other gobbler was still in there or not, but we figured out that he was. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Yost.
And Danny is like reading this thing out to me of what's going to happen. We saw which way the bird left, and I was like, this can't, okay, it's going to happen similar to this. I guess he's giving me a roundabout of what's going to happen, may happen. It was like word for word for word for word. He goes, that bird right there that's coming, remember, that's the one that got run off. He is, he just got beat up, so he doesn't want to fight. So
Now, do
he's going to,
you remember how we could tell that was that bird?
oh, yeah, because he would gobble
He would
down,
he was
going crazy.
he would answer everything that we threw at him, but if he was closing the gap, he was closing it extremely, extremely slow.
Oh, this took on, no joke, this was 40 minutes. He was
Yeah.
only 150 yards from us.
Yeah.
And he goes, Yas, you're going to have to shoot really fast. When this bird comes in, he's going to see what he thinks is that Tom that just beat him up. So you're going to have to act really fast on this. I didn't listen to the last part, and I should have shot a little faster. But what was cool was when you hear somebody talk about something, and this is kudos to you, Danny. I mean it, man. When you see exactly word for word what this guy, proclaimed was going to happen, and it happens to the T, pay attention from there on in. You know what I mean? This wasn't my game, and I learned so much. He was like, that bird's inferior. He's not going to act right. He's not going to be the bird that you want to kill. After I watched Danny kill these aggressive birds, these birds that came, coming in, I was like, I want to kill a bird like that. I want to kill a bird. He said, this bird's not going to do it for you. He told me straight up, this bird's
He's
not
already
going
got
to
his
do it for
butt
you.
kicked.
Said he just got his butt kicked. He said that bird that went up the hill, had we gotten him in front of him, you would have killed that bird and you would have killed him the way you wanted to. So there, like I say, I mean, I can kill 30 more things. But if somebody's got something to educate me with, I'm all ears about it, man. I'm not that guy that's like, oh, I've done that, I've done this, I've done. Man, I wanted to learn as much as I could. I hated when Danny and them left because I felt like I was just grasping on to what was happening in the turkey woods,
Well, and
man.
that's just,
Yeah.
and again, that's one, being open to learning new things.
For some reason, Evan, your connection is lagging.
Just a bit.
Well, one of the things that I think that a lot of guys have a misconception of is they always think that gobbles are an aggressive sign. You know what I
Everything I
mean?
learned. Yeah.
And when you call and a gobbler hits back, you automatically think, oh man, that's an aggressive bird. Well, gobbles aren't always aggressive. They gobble for a bunch of different reasons.
It's a
And a lot of
communication
times,
tool.
it's out of
Mhm.
fear.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's a communication, and it's not necessarily like an elk bugle because, how many times have you heard guys say, oh, the turkeys around here are idiots. They'll gobble when you slam the truck door.
Yeah, it's called a
Well,
shock gobble for a
that's
reason.
it's called a shock gobble.
I've had
They
elk do that.
they hear something that startles them, and it, they gobble from it. Whenever they get a little bit scared or startled by something, it will make them gobble. Well, when you get one talking like that is just gobbling and gobbling and gobbling, and you can tell that he's coming, but he's coming really, really slow, and he's doing a bunch of gobbling. I'm no biologist, but based on my experience and what I've seen, a lot of times that bird that's doing all that gobbling is trying his best to get any male bird that's up there with that hen to answer back. Because if he doesn't, if if he doesn't want to come in real quickly like that, a lot of times it's because he doesn't want to pop up there and find another male bird that's going to kick his butt. He's just, he's a chicken. And so that's what that bird was doing to us. He was gobbling so much. He was just, if there's a male bird up there, I want him to answer me so I can just turn around and leave him alone, and we kept answering him with hens. He kept gobbling, inching his way in. And what I told you was, as soon as he sees another male bird, and you've got a male bird on your bow, as soon as he sees that fan, he's going to think, oh crap, there's the dude that might kick my butt, and he is going to turn around and leave as soon as he sees us. And that's basically what happened. That bird came into an opening. He didn't see you at first. He was kind of in half strut, and he kept, coming in and out of strut. And as soon as you went to draw and he caught that motion just a little bit and saw that male bird, he turned around and walked off like a doggone chicken. And you didn't
Man,
quite get the shot. But I mean, that just comes from, man, having a lot of different birds that have been coming in and dragging their feet like that, And
it also teaches you that it's not that easy.
Mhm.
It also teaches you that there are different personalities.
Oh
It
yeah,
teaches you, it just opens your mind to things. Had that bird done that to me without you prior to me hunting with you,
oh yeah,
gobbled and gobbled and gobbled and gobbled and gobbled, I'd be like, I'm gonna go find another one. Now it's a challenge. Now it's like, no, no, no. I want to kill you. I want to figure out what it is, what it takes to kill you. You in particular. Now there's a personal vendetta here.
yeah,
So it's making it so much more fun. And I don't know, when you're out there learning these habits of birds, you're learning where they want to be, you're learning how they act in certain areas with certain birds. Dude, it just like I say, I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but it just opens your eyes. If you keep your eyes open, it opens your eyes to the different challenges in
yeah.
hunting these birds.
Well, and
Well, and how much fun it is. Like when you're trying, once you get decent at reading a bird, at reading his body language, at how he reacts to things. I mean, there's been times where we're hunting one bird that's hanging out in a certain area, and you find out that that bird is not killable with any male decoy. And I don't care whether you put a real subordinate looking Jake out in front of a ground blind or out in a field by itself over a hen, whatever. As soon as he sees a male bird, he's going to turn around and leave. He's just a big fat chicken.
That's
Um,
right.
and once you figure that out about a bird, well, you got to change your tactic up. Now, you're going to go with the least intimidating decoy that you can possibly go with, which would probably be like a bedded hen. You know what I mean?
Right,
Um,
right.
and in some cases, they're just, man, if they see another bird, they're going to walk away. They're just big chickens. But then you got to get on another bird that is a little bit more dominant, and you're going to get exactly the opposite reaction, to where they
Right,
see a male bird and they come and they jump on it. You know what I mean? And that's
right.
that's what we're all looking for. Is trying to find that bird that, is dominant, is going to really play.
Put
Um,
that show on.
yeah. And
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
we talk about that shish kebab shot that me and Evan want to pull off, that's what we call it. Our goal is with one of those bow mounted decoys to get one to come in close enough to where the broadhead goes into the bird before the
Before it's
knock
off the
comes
string.
off the string.
yep.
And
Closest
oh
I've seen
man,
is like 6 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, something like that.
yeah, yeah. I haven't
I
I
can't
haven't found the
imagine
bird that actually was
it.
angry enough,
Derail the string,
dude.
do everything.
It might it might turn into a
Ah,
train
Yeah.
wreck. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it very well could turn into a train wreck. I mean, but that's why we shoot Hoyts, man. They can take
That's
that.
right. That's right. That's facts. My brother did it with an elk. He killed a spike a couple of years ago, and he said that he didn't know if the arrow was going to clear the string.
That's
He did. He
awesome.
did. It was like so close that he said you didn't need pins. You didn't need nothing. No, everything was brown in front of him. He let the string go, and he was just waiting for a kapow to happen.
Yeah.
But it was like 4 feet, I think he's what he thought. Just on the other side of the tree.
Oh man.
So amazing.
I would love to have that happen. The closest one that I ever had to me was trying to sniff me. He like saw me in the middle of this trail. I was on my knee, and he came up, and his nose was close enough to where I could have reached out with the arrow and poked him in the nose. Um, but
I've
I
had that
would
with
have shot
cows.
that bull, but there was a giant back behind him that was rutting with the cows, and he was just a little satellite bull that came along. But yeah, those close encounters, those are what really do it for me. That's
Bow hunting, man. That's what
yeah,
bow hunting's
man.
about, man.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The
And I'm
goal
learning more and more.
is not necessarily to harvest and fill tags every single year, but count coup. I mean, Chief over here knows that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Count. I love it. I love it. That's right, man. I want to count now. I mean, Evan knows this. I I'm more of a. I always tell people the truth, man. I'm not a good hunter. I'm just a good shot. Like I don't wait for that bull to come in or that deer to come in or anything for that matter to come into 30 yards. As soon as I get a shot that I know is within my range, my
Mm-hmm.
ethical range, arrows flying, dude. And now as you get older, as you're starting to get that passion of, remember what archery is about, remember what bow hunting's about. You want that close encounter. I used to try to like think it was a cool thing. I not tried. I used to think it was a really cool thing to make these longer shots. We'll keep the numbers out of it because you know
Yeah.
how people want to tear you down. But um, I used to think it was the coolest thing in the world to watch that arrow
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
drop in. Now I want to do what we're talking about right now. I want to see the arrow touching the animal before it leaves the string. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly it, man. I think like when people talk about this hunt, that's just this. It's just an antelope. It's just a turkey. Who cares? Dude, you're missing the point. It's hunting. It's enjoying that time while you're out there. It's learning these habits of these animals. It's teaching you to be a better hunter.
Yeah.
And people are missing that quite a bit. Man, every time I go out in the woods, I can say, man, I know that ranch better than anybody. There's still coolies, there's still draws, there's still things that I've never been in. So if a turkey takes me back in there, I've learned a new area.
Yeah.
If I and I'm out there in the field doing what I love to do to boot. So turkey's got me kind of lived up right now.
Yeah. I tell guys all the time that aren't high on turkey hunting is that to me that's the closest thing that there is to elk hunting.
Oh
You
yeah.
know. So what was I just saying?
Uh,
Uh,
between
we're talking about the
glitches
benefits.
and stuff dropping and all that.
Oh,
Oh, I know what I was
that
talking about.
it was the
Closest to
comparing.
elk
Yeah.
hunting.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
So a
So,
turkey has this equivalent vision of an eagle. I don't know if people know that, but this is scientific fact. Turkey has the equivalent visual of an eagle, right? So that
mhm.
means he can pick apart anything that catches his eye.
Yeah.
So how much more challenging can you get than that? I mean, if he really wants to pick you apart, he can. But I guess the goal is to keep his mind occupied on love, keep his
Yeah.
mind occupied on his territory. So how good are we at it, right? Like how good can you be? Keep his eyes off you, keep his heart on the
Yeah.
decoy at hand.
While
Yeah.
calling at him and
Well,
showing him a decoy and trying to get his attention.
That's right. That's exactly it. Well said.
well, they do have very sharp vision, and they can also see almost 300 degrees around their head without ever turning it. Like their eyes are set out there. Yeah, they can see everything, but right behind their head, I think.
The only other animal that's close to that is the antelope because of eyes being on the side and protruding.
Yeah, they say antelope can see like 270 degrees or something like that.
280, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But with turkeys, I mean, that's their number one line of defense.
That's right. And how many times do you hear, especially from guys that have spent so much time hunting birds? I am of the mindset that if a turkey could smell, you would never kill one. It would be physically impossible between their vision and then having smell. Never happen.
And I was under the misconception that turkeys couldn't hear good. Man, hanging out with Danny last year, I mean, I never paid attention. The slightest movement, turkeys, that I'm the slightest sound. I couldn't believe it, man. Like, I never paid that much attention to it. And all of a sudden, it lets me know that that's probably why I got busted a few times before I ever saw a bird come in.
Yeah.
Prior to this, you know what I mean? Making sounds that I thought I could get away with. And like you say, if a turkey could smell, man, I think that'd be bad news for hunters, man.
And one of my favorite things to do on a setup is if like what you guys had, where you have a bird that's gobbling, but he's not closing that distance, I might stop calling for a little bit, and all I'm doing is just rustling the grass around. I'm not making any sounds, just rustling the grass. I'll move my feet a little bit, hand through. If I've got a wing with me, I'm just brushing the ground and stroking it like I'm a hen, just pecking at the dirt. And I could care less about what you're going to do. I'm doing my thing. And if you want to come over here, that's fine.
Cool. That's a cool strategy. I like that, man. Dang, you're right.
Yeah, like I said, to me, it reminds me so much of elk hunting, the interaction that happens, and like it's the closest thing there is to it. I call them little feathered elk is what they are. But they have some strengths that elk don't have, and they have some weaknesses that elk don't have. And one of them's that vision. Elk, as you know, Yahsti, you can be standing there in the wide open in blue jeans and a denim jacket or whatever, and if you don't move, that elk will walk. If he doesn't, as long as he doesn't smell you, he will walk right up to you and look at you like, what kind of tree is that? And then walk right on by you.
That's right.
And it's the damnedest thing. Now, if you so much as twitch, they catch you. I mean, literally, if you blink an eye, they will catch you. And, they're experts at picking up movement. But with turkeys, you don't have to be moving at all. That's why,
and they'll still tear you up.
Camouflage is so important when, for shotgun hunters that are just leaning up a tree or whatever, or up against a tree, is because you don't have to be moving. They can pick you out of things.
Oh man, right now.
Well, and
yeah,
so
for sure.
Let's talk about the vision real quick. Ungulates, deer, elk, that genus, right? They see in what I perceive as grayscale, right? So the original Sitka optifade, the open country, that hue is how ungulates view the world from a color standpoint. Like it's designed around that ungulate vision. Turkeys will see in color.
Mm-hmm.
So you wear blue jean or something that's like not supposed to fit into that terrain or that environment. Yep, busted.
Yeah.
I've
been in camouflage and like sitting there leaning against a tree and had a turkey walk into, 5 yards or something like that. And I didn't move at all.
It already had
and they nailed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. That's with full camouflage and a face mask and everything.
I did a few times. I'm laughing because that's me all the time.
Well, but again,
yeah, man.
So how is their memory? Like, if they're living in an area, do they know that area well enough that that brush-looking object isn't what I know? Like, Is that part of
I'm
it?
not sure.
I don't know how a turkey's, again, I don't know how
I
the
don't know.
brain and how their memory works when it comes to some of that.
I know it's not very big, and I know that I
Oh,
firmly believe that there's
it's the
no such
dumbest
thing as a
smart bird
smart
you ever
turkey.
freaking try to chase.
Yeah, there's, in my opinion, humble opinion, there's no such thing as a smart turkey. There's scared turkeys and there's petrified
Yep.
turkeys. And
Scared turkeys and
Yep.
petrified turkeys.
and
That
you
sounds
know,
about right.
all turkeys are scared. Petrified turkeys are the ones that grew up in a place where every time they gobbled from the time they were a jake, there was a load of shotgun lead that went above their head and blasted one of their buddies. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
those are petrified turkeys. Um, but as far
Those
as
are the ones that
smart
spend too
goes,
much
I
time
haven't
on
seen much
public ground.
evidence of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Petrified turkeys
Exactly.
live on public ground.
yeah, in some cases. There's a lot of them down there in Georgia and Mississippi.
Man, they say they're harder to kill than a deer down there.
You
Like
know,
they,
for the longest time, I didn't think that there was any difference between um, an Eastern and say our Miriams or the Rio Grandes. But in recent years, I think I've changed my mind on that just a little bit. I think that Easterns are naturally a little bit more
Just
wary,
cautious.
and for whatever, yeah, and
Well, but if you think
you
about
know,
it too, it
I
makes sense. For the most part, they're living in bigger wooded, bigger timber areas. So when they're on the
yeah,
ground moving through, there is more things that can potentially get them. Coyotes or other predators, like there's a lot of cover and things that they have to worry about. Merriam's,
sure,
again, still to some degree with the pines and all that, but Rios are out where they can see.
yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah.
and same with Merriam's in a lot of situations.
Right.
But there's certainly something to be said about the Easterns, but also those Easterns in certain parts of the country, man, they literally have had it to where, yep, if they gobbled, there's somebody sneaking up on them a few minutes later. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Which, a
And
lot
you
of
can relate that to elk as well. I mean,
oh, sure.
as soon as an elk bugles, you know what I mean, on public land, there's 10 different cow calls going at them. There's another 3 different bugles going at them. So that there is a lot relatable to these species, even though one is winged versus a four-legged furred animal.
Yep.
Man, I tell you what, there's a lot that you can relate
Well,
to them,
it's
man.
Yeah, I don't
And with pressure. I mean, you think about what we do. Go ahead.
I don't know. Evan was asking about their memory, and I don't know how good it is, but I do know that they go and they find the exact same roosts. And, like
Man.
on Cottonwood Creek
Hmm.
bottoms, a lot of times it's the exact same tree.
yep.
But if you're up in the mountains hunting them on, ridges that are covered with ponderosa pines or something like that, and we're talking western turkey hunting right now, uh, they have different roosts that they use all the time, but they go back to the same ones over and over and over again. So they must remember where those things are.
But does a Miriam cover more
I
ground like an elk would, right? Like because of trying to find different food
I think they
sources,
do.
they're covering more ground. So they're doing a circuit that is 2 days, 3 days, whatever it is. So they're using the same roost trees. They're just having to cover more ground between them to get the food sources.
Well, I personally believe that a lot of them are spread out like that just because uh, there's more terrain to cover. They're not concentrated into certain areas like the ones
Right.
down in Cottonwood bottoms. They're all concentrated up and down that bottom. So if they want to find another turkey, if they're looking for a hen or somebody else, they're constantly bumping into them. The Miriams up in the mountains, man, they might have to go 3 ridges over before they find another bird.
So here's a good question then. Those birds that we were hunting in the mountains, this is because I'm going to be using this in a week.
Hmm. Yeah.
Those birds that we hunted in the mountains, they're probably not birds that go much down to the cottonwood bottoms is too much versus the birds that we feel
I
may
don't
live
know.
there.
Those birds might be wintering in the cottonwood bottoms, but then move up into that ponderosa country, during the
Okay.
spring, as soon as the
Fall.
snow's melted off enough.
Yep, they're
and
following that snow line up.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
And
That's
so
a good.
they very well, but once they're into that new terrain, there's nothing there that's congregating them, that's making them. There's good roost trees on every single one of those ridges. You know what I
Now
mean?
here's something to their intelligence. There's I'm already scouting. I'm already looking for birds. I'm
Yeah.
trying to pinpoint where they are. I mean, and like we're talking about, you got these cottonwood bottoms right here at the house, and there's probably 150 birds right now that are going into one or two trees right now.
Ooh, I'll be up there next week.
Oh, there's a
I
pile of them,
I think we're gonna
and they
plan a
are
trip.
they're going crazy right now. That's just one. That's just one bunch that I found. There's another bunch that's like another 70 birds, and they all, disperse after they come off the tree, whatever. But here's to their intelligence. Below this tree is nothing but feathers
Oh yeah.
Feathers and poop.
of animals that
Yeah.
of animals that have come and eaten them. You
Yeah.
know what I
Oh,
mean? So they never change their roost, and it's like I would never fly into this tree ever
yeah.
again if I knew that there was a bobcat or a coyote that was waiting for me at the
Yeah.
bottom. You know what I mean? I'd go somewhere else.
Well,
But
and
yeah, there's 10, 15 birds that are, 10, 15 birds worth of feathers down below these trees.
Really. Yeah.
It's
well, we
amazing.
used to
Yeah.
find roost
Probably.
trees in the fall because one, your foliage on the ground was much less. Cattle come through, mow it on down, and then literally we're finding roost trees in the middle of the day because of how much turkey poop is all around the ground.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. That's what I used to find this one, the poop and the feathers and stuff like that. Exactly.
Yep. And
Um,
then just
their roost on their roost on the cottonwood bottom where you're at, Yahsti, are they choosing basically the biggest stand of cottonwoods in there, the biggest cottonwood trees? Because a lot of times I feel like that's where they do it. If you've got all these cottonwood trees that are on this level, and then you've got this one group that are, a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, that
That's
typically
exactly it.
tends to be where they're at.
Both these cottonwoods, well, there's about five cottonwoods there.
They're
But the
monsters.
two, yeah, they're wider than my truck is from the front. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're giant cottonwoods. The limbs on these cottonwoods are the size of some of the trees around them.
yeah.
And that's
Right.
where these birds are right now
Yep.
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always interesting to me, trying to locate roosts in different terrains, and where I think it would be really hard is going out there to the east where you're in big woods country
Yeah.
and all deciduous, and you've just got, complete canopy cover with all these big old trees around. How do you find a roost in that? I I've not done enough out there to really figure it out, but I would think you'd be looking for the same thing, like a giant oak or something like that with some branches that come off the sides.
That's exactly what my buddy was telling me. Turkeys are on the mind right now. So
Yeah.
I'm talking with my buddies all over the states right now, and my buddy is talk. We're just talking about this. He goes, I look on ridges
Yep.
with tall oaks. That's
Yeah.
where they're gonna roost. They're not gonna roost in these bottoms. They're gonna
Yeah.
roost on these ridges, so they can take it this way. They can take it that way.
Yeah.
And so man, this guy's all about it. He's kind of like you guys. He says the wind will help decipher on which way that bird's going to bail out of a tree.
Right.
It's like that's how you know where to set up on these birds
Right.
off of a roost. And I'm like, I never knew that.
The the same thing goes for like ponderosa ridges up there in that in that
Yeah,
pine country where you're at. When you find the biggest ponderosas that are on a ridge, and I not usually right on top of it, but just off of the top a little bit. Um, when you find those great big ponderosas with lots of limbs coming off the sides of them,
Yeah.
those are the ones that you want to be looking under for feathers and evidence that it's a roost, you know.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, you go, you know, over the next ridge and you can usually find another spot like that, you know, in that kind of country that's
That's
really
yeah.
covered up with that timber. And they bounce back and forth. They don't necessarily just stick to one roost all the time.
So you think ponderosa birds, up in the hills, they're not as apt to go to the same tree. This is good for me right now because this is
Yeah.
about that. And I'm choosing, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I'm choosing to go hunt the hills. I want to
Yeah.
be hunting bears and turkeys basically at the same time.
Yeah.
So down in the bottoms, you definitely have those birds that are always going to be in the bottoms, but I want the challenge of hunting a mountain bird right now.
There's just something about watching them
Yeah.
come in
The
through the
challenge.
pines or what I like even better is when you find them in the aspens. Like, there's nothing like watching a big old tom come strutting in through an aspen thicket, you know. It's just awesome. But
Was that your bird last year,
yeah,
Danny, that you killed in the
your
aspen?
question about no, I haven't killed one in the aspens for a few years
Okay.
now. Last year
He killed one. He killed one in a field in the most open field that we have on the place,
Well, and
out in the middle of it. And
I
go
would say he
ahead.
killed one in one of the was it a bottom in Colorado then?
Yeah, that was a
It was a
cottonwood bottom,
cottonwood.
not an
Okay,
aspen.
I didn't
So
remember
they
the
kind of
video well
looked
enough.
there were some younger cottonwoods that looked a little bit like aspens, but that bird that Yahsti keeps talking about, that bird, like we said, he had like 40 hens with him, and it was just him. And
And it's a big old bird. That was the coolest thing about
yes,
it. He wasn't
oh
a young
man,
bird.
he was a booner.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
remember
definitely, man.
that paintbrush he had, big old wide beard, and good spurs for Miriam's, and the birds that are up there in Montana. I mean, you can go and you can hunt what's classified as Miriam's in South Dakota or in Nebraska, parts of eastern Colorado and Wyoming, but a lot of those birds don't have that classic Miriam's look where they've got a really thick band that's really white. Those birds up in Montana are some of the
Ultra whites.
prettiest. They
Yeah.
are the prettiest Miriam's I've ever seen. Like, those were, and this bird, he might have been the prettiest bird I've ever killed. But when me and this cameraman, we were filming that for an episode of
Olin.
Bowhunter TV, and that will actually that hunt will actually air coming up here in the next couple of months. But when we first broke out into the open, we snuck through the cottonwood bottom to get to the edge of that field that they were out in the middle of. And then as soon as we got to that point where I could go ahead and crawl out onto the edge of the field with my, I had my Hoyt with go sticks on it so that I could just stand it up in front of me, and I'm sitting there Indian style behind it. And Olin is laying behind me 5 or 10 yards, and staying back far enough to where he could capture what was going on and wasn't too close up behind me to where I'd hide him from everything. And I would scoot the bow forward a yard and slide myself up behind it, scoot the bow forward a yard, slide myself up behind it. And when that bird caught sight of us, he ran into about 20 yards, but it was on the other side of a bunch of brush. And he strutted
And
back and forth several
this
times.
is in the middle of an open field. Like, this isn't cover.
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, like
I hate to sound like a broken record
alfalfa
again.
or something like
This is
that,
open.
or
It's
Oh, it
just
was
natural grass,
pasture.
like
okay.
natural
Yeah.
grass.
It was
But it
pasture.
was just nothing there.
But there
There's nothing
was,
there.
there was a brush pile
A little
that
brush pile, a old
he came up
slash pile.
behind. Yeah. And I could see him through it, but I didn't have any shot. And he strutted back and forth like, get your butt out of here, And after a second, he kind of dropped out of strut and looked at me for a second and then turned around and walked off and went back to his hens. And, a lot of guys will give
I
up
thought it
at
was
that
over.
point. Yeah, like, oh man, he came in, he looked too hard at the decoy, he knows it's not real, and he walked away. That wasn't it. He didn't want to come up and actually fight. All he wanted to do was come up, strut a few times, and try and
Show his
intimidate
presence.
me and get me to turn around and leave. And when I wouldn't leave, he was like, "Well, I'm just going to go back over here to my hens rather than going over there and fighting with him."
Right,
And
right.
so when he went back to his hens, I just kept going at him, a little bit, 1 yard at a time. And when, him or the hens would look at me, I would move that decoy back and forth, just like a
I rem-
tom that's strutting. And
I remember
sometimes,
seeing the fan come up. Yep.
right, like drop it, push it forward to drop the fan out of the way, and
Yep.
then bring the fan back up. And here he comes a second time. And he runs into 30 yards this time. And he's right on the other side of the one big cottonwood tree in the middle of that
One
pasture.
tree. Yeah.
And I could have shot him right then, but he was 30 yards away, and I didn't, I wanted him to be closer. Well, he came and he strutted just like that again, and he turned around and left back over to his hens. And, I was like, man, I don't know if he's going to do it or not. But I kept going at him. I just kept sliding up, and I got to where we got up to that cottonwood tree, and I poked out from the side of it, and I'm still sitting flat on my butt, and just showed him that fan a couple times. And sure enough, here he comes again for a third time and runs into like 12 yards. And literally, when he got into 12 yards, he went into strut and turned sideways. And I think what he saw my cameraman, Olin, who didn't have anything in front of him, laying 5 yards
Right.
behind me and out to the side. He's laying on his belly with the camera up like this. And literally, he turned around and started to take a few steps the other way, and Olin says, I got him, and I went ahead and shot him. But the lesson there was that bird didn't leave because he knew the gig was up. He knew that something was wrong. He was leaving because he just didn't want to fight.
Yep.
He just wanted
Right.
to
Right. Right.
he just wanted to intimidate from a distance and hope that I would get up and leave him to his hens. And he came in and tried to intimidate me one too many times. But
So you were doing that nag, 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 poke, poke, poke,
yeah,
poke,
yeah,
poke, 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 poke. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wasn't
Gotcha.
doing a lot of calling, you know.
Right.
Once
Just
in a while, I
antag
might give a little
little,
yelp.
just enough antagonizing to finally get
Yep,
him to. Yeah, yeah. I'm
yep,
I'm asking these questions because I may be doing the same thing, So
yeah.
I want to
Well,
kick it
that's
in.
that's one of the funnest things about using a bow mounted is because you can make a move on those turkeys out in the wide open. Now you still got to rely on them. You've got some birds that even though he's got hens, if he's already had, and I always find that the later in the season that it gets, the more likely it is that you're going to find a bird that absolutely doesn't want to fight. And I think that that's just because at the beginning of the season, they're fresh. They haven't
They're
been in a
ready to
bunch
rock
of
and roll.
fights.
Yeah. Pecking orders haven't
The
been
majority of the
established,
birds
and
are, yeah, they're ready to scrap. Well,
Yeah.
as it gets later into the season, they've had usually a fight with another tom every single day, and I think that they start to get beat up. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
they just start to imagine if we had to fight somebody every single day. Pretty soon, we're going to get sore. You know what
That's
I
right.
mean?
That's right, man. Facts
And
of life.
yeah, and I think that toward the end of the season, it gets harder and harder to find a bird that wants to actually have a fight. You
So
know?
here's the next question then. If a bird, we're at, our birds have been going crazy for about a month now already. This
Yeah.
is I mean, a lot of people say, well, they started in March. I mean, they're full, full blown
Did you see
about,
him fighting?
yeah, that's what I
You
mean.
have?
Like they've been full blown here for, I've watched the chases already. I've watched all kinds of stuff already.
Yeah.
So this is 2 weeks ago. How are we have 13 days until season comes in? How are our birds gonna be acting and reacting? now.
Still on your hen cycle,
when we finally do get
like
on them.
it's testosterone
I
levels
don't
like
know.
velvet
You
getting
might be
stripped
a little
off.
bit. Evan, say what you just said again.
I was gonna say it's just like testosterone levels rising in deer or elk. Testosterone level rises, antlers get stripped, and then all of a sudden, they're trying to establish a pecking order. They're rounding up, does, cows, doing their thing. Same thing with turkeys. Like you have these huge fall flocks that they're establishing. Okay, here's our pecking order. This is the dominance. This is the way this is going to work. Those hens aren't ready yet. They're just out there doing their thing. They're coming down in the morning.
Right.
They're going from point A to point B, and they're feeding on their way, and they're going to loaf in the middle of the day, and then they're going to go back and they're going to roost. And those hens are still on just a steady routine because they haven't cycled. They're not ready to be bred yet. I don't care what those guys are doing because their testosterone's up.
Gotcha.
Like, screw them. They're boys are going to be boys.
Yeah. Well, and if they did start early because you've had a really dry or hot spring, because I think that warm weather does get them going,
Okay.
but I mean, you could find some that aren't as anxious to fight because they've already been fighting for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
But as long as, like Evan's saying, as long as those hens are still being bred, there's still going to be, a lot of positioning and jostling going on. You're going to find some dominant birds, and then you're going to find some birds that, have had their butt kicked a little bit and might be a little bit more shy.
One good thing I think we got going for us is we've had 2 winters. I mean, the winter before was a harder winter, but it was a fast winter. But our population of turkeys has absolutely blown up. I mean,
Really?
oh
I bet
God
you're about the
almighty,
only person in the country that can say that.
Oh
Yeah.
man, we've got more birds here now than we probably had in the past 3 years combined.
Okay, Danny,
Wow.
calendars. We're
Wow,
looking
that's
at a
awesome.
trip. When do you open? I'm just saying. I've got so much travel coming up.
Just
Like
saying,
we
just
need to
saying.
get something on the books now because I only have like 3 weeks from April 18th until the end of August that I can do anything in. So
Now remember, we have elk to worry about after this. So like that's
Yeah.
Danny and Ev gonna be coming hunting. So I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Yeah. The coolest thing about this is we're talking about, like you say, 2 species that you can actually relate each other with that are so far apart, in the
Yeah.
genome but like I mean, I can't wait to do any kind of hunt with y'all. I can't wait to get you guys back up here, man. This is gonna be an awesome year. We're getting good moisture right now, and I tell you, we're gonna be looking at some elk too here pretty soon.
Well, tell us a little bit about what else you've been doing. I've been seeing a lot of videos of you out shed hunting. Have you been doing any good?
That's a sore subject.
Why?
We've been having we've had, I don't know if it's EHD or blue tongue, whichever one is where you find the deer on the river.
So
Yeah,
well,
Like you find them
so
dead.
here's the thing. Blue tongue affects bovines more than EHD. EHD is more of the ungulate. Blue tongue is the
Okay.
same virus or bacteria spread wise, but blue tongue has a bigger effect on cattle. To my knowledge, like the number of confirmed blue tongue in deer is very, very minuscule. And because I had to look it up because I thought our area was more blue tongue than EHD, and it's
We lost you
There
there,
you are
Evan.
for a second. Yeah.
Evan's having some technical difficulties.
Did you get to watch him just now?
I love it when
I like watching.
but
I
my
like
camera
listening.
is.
We can't hear you, Ev.
You got me now?
yeah, Man, we're
Hey,
getting like,
You got me
there you
now?
are.
yeah,
Boom.
But now
Okay,
you're
so
paused.
we're back.
that's better.
Oh man, I got to
Okay,
figure
we're
something
back.
out with this. So
So
EHD blue tongue, from the little bit I've looked at, and again, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a veterinarian, okay, but I was curious because my train of thought where I grew up is that we were far enough in western Kansas that we were more blue tongue, and then you get east of us where you're more hardwoods, things like that. That was the EHD area of the country.
right.
EHD and blue tongue are the same general viral strain. Blue tongue affects bovine and cattle more. EHD affects ungulates and deer. And I don't know exactly what the differences are, but from all the little bit of reading and research I've been able to do, blue tongue is bovine cattle, EHD deer.
Gotcha.
Well,
Yeah, so I guess it's EHD then that we're having through here. My boys and I, we found three bucks in about 100-yard radius that were all up and comers. They weren't anything special yet, but they were beautiful, beautiful youngsters, and they're gone. We found a deer that Evan and I were talking about. I was after a big deer. He ended up going 183 inches
ooh,
that my neighbor found.
big
That hurts.
whitetail.
Big
Big
whitetail.
whitetail.
Big whitetail.
We've got
183 inch
velvet
whitetail.
pictures, velvet video. Yahsti sending me screenshots of Onyx going, okay, he's bedded here, he's coming out here, I've got to stand here. Like, we're trying to coordinate this from 12 hours away and figure out what this buck's routine and pattern is and how to get him killed early.
Right.
This deer actually ducked my string the year before at like 28 yards. Ducked the string. I should have aimed a little bit lower,
Yeah.
And ducks my string. So I did, by talking with Evan, me and him strategizing, be here. This is what the wind did this day. This is what the wind did this day. Okay, the wind's blowing like this today. Go sit in this stand. And
Yeah.
went and sat. Deer walks out at 28 yards, and I just, hey, see, there's another part to this story is I'm what's known as draw length challenged. So so I I
Yahsti's
got
direct
Chris
descendant.
Perkins calls me T-Rex because I had
No. You can't use T-Rex because the only thing you guys have in common is the hands. Like, that's it.
It's close.
Yahsti, you're
It's close,
5 foot.
man. It's
You're
close
5
though.
foot nothing. Like, there's got to be like
That's
a
cold-blooded,
dodo
bro.
bird. Would a dodo bird be close enough?
I'm telling you, man, it sucks so bad because I know a little bit of speed, and I did speed up my bow. I was, there for a while. I was doing the whole 280 with the heaviest arrow, and it's great. I keep my bow at about 300 feet a second
Yeah.
with what weight of arrow I can get away with, just for that little bit of extra speed because of situations such as getting back to it, where we lost this deer to EHD. We lost a whole bunch of other deer to EHD. I do have a deer. I mean, there's a bunch of deer, but I have a deer that I'm after. My neighbor, the best horn hunter on earth, I think. This deer winters on his place. He lives here, but winters there. And he found both sheds. One shed is 77 inches. The other shed is 81 inches.
That's a nice buck.
So, yeah, he's not a bad deer. And this was a down year for him.
Kind of spread does he have?
He's probably there 20, 21 inside.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So he's a real flat frame deer, real heavy.
Okay. Yeah.
He lost tine length this year and gained mass. He actually scored more last year than he did this year. So I'm thinking that he's gonna maybe get that 7-year-old jump. I'm hoping that he just throws it on, and right where that buck that we're talking about the 183. This deer lives in the same exact spot. So, I mean, I'm hoping to get a hold of him. Other than that, we picked up some pretty good sheds. I picked up a couple of sheds, in the high 50s, low 60s.
Yeah.
And great deer. What I'm after now is I've been looking for elk sheds, and I'm hoping that a couple of the bigger bulls stayed around. So I'm weird. I know I'm weird. It is what it is. I will not step into an elk's area unless I absolutely have to, be it winter, be it spring, doesn't matter. If that's where he's living, I want to keep him comfortable.
Yeah.
And there's been some bulls that are in this park up like there's this choked up timber all around this one park, and these bulls are just living there right now.
Yeah.
And there was a bull in there that he's 380, 385 ish.
Nice.
So he's a big bull, and he's a 6 point.
Oh God.
So he doesn't, no extra stickers, no nothing, and he's there. I didn't watch them shed their horns. They're still in the same spot, so I know their horns are right there. But I'm so scared to bump them.
Yeah.
I know people say it doesn't matter this time of the year. Just go in there. They'll be right back. Call me a wuss, man. I want to keep them here. I don't want to give them any reason to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on it?
That's a good plan. They have you laid glass on them and seen that they dropped? It would be very hard for me to.
There's not a single one of them have horns anymore. They're all dropped.
Man, if it's landlocked enough to where nobody else is going to go in there, then great plan. But
be hard to not go in there.
There ain't nobody.
Places that I deal with are not landlocked enough. As soon as I knew those horns were on the ground, I'd be up there getting them.
There ain't nobody. It's in the middle of the place.
Yeah.
It's one of the safest places for them to be right now. And it's only a hop, skip, and a jump for them, though. If I bumped them to the east,
yeah,
and they stayed there, they'd get killed in the first of archery, or they get moved out of that country, and then moved out of that country, and then moved out of that country. They start getting bumped too quick. The place where we hunt is really long, but really narrow.
Yeah.
So it's 20 miles long, but it's only 4 miles wide. 4 miles for an elk is nothing,
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
No, I'm not going to question your methods when it comes to elk, because you're a pretty good elk hunter, and you prove it all the time. So, man, if your gut tells you to stay out there, I guess stay out.
I'm just scared to bump them. I know it's like 5 months from season, 6 months from season. It's just like I'm such a wuss about just if they're comfortable. Yeah. And this is the first time our elk bulls have wintered here.
Right.
They usually leave. They usually go to Wyoming.
Yeah.
And they winter in Wyoming, and those guys pick up their horns.
Yeah.
This is the first year in like 5 years that our bulls have stayed.
Yeah.
So like I'm starting to wonder where we cat hunt.
Yeah.
Is that what pushed them out of there? We didn't cat hunt this year. So I'm wondering if that's.
Well, and also if depending on what the food source is like, if they've got what they need, why leave and deplete their bodies making that trip? If you guys haven't had the amount of snowpack to really push them, and now you're getting some decent moisture now, perfect. I think as much as I'm like Danny, like I would want to go after them. I think in this case you're making the right decision, because those bulls have broken their traditional pattern. They have not left the area.
Exactly.
So
this is what I'm talking about.
We're just going to settle down. And again, if they're in there and they've dropped and no one else can get in there, when you go to hunt them,
nobody can get in there.
There's a good chance you're going to pick up their sheds. Now, they might be chalkies at that point, but.
Yeah, they may be solid whites or something, but they'll still be good, and they'll be easier to find, and you're not bumping things. Now, the thing is if the turkeys are in there, and they probably will be,
We'll
That
see
gives
how
me the-
hardcore a turkey hunter you really
He's gonna
are
be
then.
all
that
in.
gives me an excuse. that gives me the excuse to get in there too. You know what I mean? So, and turkeys are viciously in there. Like when they're up in the high, I always find them in there.
Yeah.
Always find them in there. So, and I now that I have a little bit of knowledge behind hunting turkeys, like watching a person that has done this all his life, and I got firsthand experience with it now, I may know how to read those birds that I didn't know how to read before because I've hunted these birds before
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
hunted them unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
I'm being real about it. Like I've hunted them
Man.
unsuccessfully. Like where we were talking about where these elk are right now, there's always birds in there in the spring, and I have failed a few times on that particular bunch of birds if they're back in there, and they're always in there. Now that I have a little bit of knowledge, now that I have a little bit of education, I know maybe what to throw at them this time.
Mhm.
Right.
Maybe, I've never hunted with a decoy in there. I've
Yeah.
never hunted with a bow mounted decoy. Maybe
Right.
these are more aggressive birds,
You need
So,
some of those wind
and
drifters.
learning to read their. I have wind drifters. Danny left his wind drifters with me, so
That is a running. You want a bow hunting running gun setup?
hey.
You get a couple of those wind drifters out there shaking around, and you just sit within 6 yards of them. That's your setup.
Oh yeah.
So okay,
That's
so here's a good
fun.
question. Did you lose? Okay, I'm back.
I kicked him out of the studio.
I'm such an idiot.
No,
I'm
no, it
sorry.
was
I'm
me.
sorry.
I
I'm such an idiot.
kicked you out of the studio. I had to hit the
Why?
wrong button.
You need a hug, man. You need Jesus in your life, man. Don't kick
Oh,
Yahsti
man.
out, man. So where do I put the wind drifters versus my decoy? I'm gonna have my bow mounted decoy. How far should I have those wind drifters out in front of me? I mean,
South.
we did it last year, but we had it at 15 yards one time. Then we had them closer. Then we actually had them out at like 30 yards. So what's a good
It's all about
number?
visibility,
Yep.
Yahsti. Like
Yeah.
literally, I think I told you when I'm setting up with a bow setup, I never want more than one male bird in my setup. If you're using the bow mounted decoy, a stalker decoy, then you're the
Mhm.
male bird.
Right.
If I'm not using a bow mounted decoy, then I'll put a male bird out there with the hens. But if you get an aggressive one, he's going to come at the male bird
Mhm.
usually. Where that hen sits is just about where she's most visible from. Like when me and you set her up 15 yards out in front of us, it was because 15 yards out in front of us, she was more visible to all the birds that were from where we expected the birds to come from.
Right.
And if she's just as visible, I'd put her like 5 yards out in front of me, something like that.
Okay, so I have a really good question here, and I'm hoping that this answers the question for people that are listening as well. There's times where it gets really, really windy here. I mean, really windy. And if you
Yeah.
call really good, the birds will still come in. But I'm talking about 15, 20 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
Like you have to be right on the bird. You were here. You got to experience that.
That
Sure.
ain't
And
nothing. That is
Hey.
like a mild day where I grew up in Kansas. Like that's
Yeah,
that's
I'm
out where
where
we're
I grew
shooting 100
where I
yards
am in
and really
eastern
making
Colorado.
some fun shots.
Oh man. Oh, don't get me wrong. Like we get those. I mean, we get those wicked winds. I don't like hunting in them.
Well,
But
and to be honest, like turkeys aren't wild about wind, man.
are they not?
They'll
No, they're
find the
not wild
bottom
about
and they'll
wind.
just
I mean, I've certainly
This is
killed
good
them.
to know, though.
I've certainly killed them in the wind, but if you can imagine, I mean, when you're a turkey, everything out there is willing to try and eat you, you know?
Right.
I
Absolutely.
mean, there's lots of different things that will try and eat you. And, when everything around them is still, it's easy for them to pick everything up. But when everything is moving, the grass around them is moving and the leaves are all rustling and they can't hear animals that are sneaking up on them. It's harder for them to pick up little things, that are moving because
That's right.
everything is moving. They're
Everything's
just,
making them nervous.
generally speaking, they're a little more
yep.
nervous in the wind.
Okay,
Well,
so that gives me another
you,
question then.
and one thing, so when that happens, you don't have two different types of turkeys anymore. You don't have scared and petrified. The scared group goes away. Everything
just
becomes
have
petrified.
They're all petrified. Yeah.
Okay. So do you okay, let me get to my first question first. Now I have another question to ask. Okay, first question is when it's kind of windy for a decoy, for a bow mounted decoy, when it gets a little windy, you know, do you set up, now correct me please, do you set up like a Jake on top of a hen or a Jake with a hen facing you to make the bird swing around, strutting his tail so that you can get to full draw?
Yeah, usually I'll face my decoys whether I'm in a blind or whether I'm just sitting over behind a tree or you know, whatever the situation is. I will usually put the decoys that are out in front of me facing me. Most times they're going to come up from the side of the decoy. I feel like that gives you a broadside shot at them. But man, I've seen them come from behind the decoy. I've seen them come from the side. Usually they don't want to go straight to the face of the decoy.
They
Most
don't
times.
want to go straight to the
They're
face.
not
They're
usually.
not
was-
like a
I was-
whitetail with a decoy. They're not trying to square off. No,
Yeah.
turkeys
Gotcha,
are
gotcha.
sneaky, nasty, rotten SOBs. They want to sneak
Okay,
attack you.
okay,
They don't want you to see
okay.
it coming.
They want to cheat. They want to cheap shot the guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. That's why I was wondering because if I have them, if I in my mind, if I have the decoys mounted towards me, and the bird comes and he struts in front of the decoy, and he struts in front of the decoy, is that my chance to draw my
Absolutely.
bow behind his
If
fan?
he's in
Oh, a
he's
lot
in
of
full
times,
strut, 'cause,
yeah.
now his eyes are
Right.
blocked. You don't have 300
Right,
degrees
right,
anymore.
right.
He's only got 180 out in front of him.
And
Now-
don't get me wrong, everybody has their own challenges. They want their own challenges. I don't want to hunt one out of a blind this year. I want to hunt one with the decoys.
Yeah.
I want that interaction. I want to be out
With a
with
bow
them.
mounted decoy.
With a bow mounted decoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now here's the next question. That we got that. When the wind is really blowing and you already told me they're now
Yeah,
petrified.
they're wary. Yeah.
Do you go looking in those draws? Do you go looking in those bottoms and still try to hunt them? Or do you leave
Yeah.
them alone, or will they come?
Well, it depends how windy it is in the bottoms, and I mean, I've certainly killed them in the wind, but generally speaking, they're just not as aggressive. They're more wary than they are. You're less likely to find them, strutting around, and more likely to find them kind of hiding up underneath, like they often act in the middle of the day. I call it the midday lull,
Okay.
where they'll go up underneath a cedar tree or something and get in the shade and
Scrape around.
can't do anything with them.
Just hang out, loaf, and
Yeah, a
put
lot
that
of
head on
times
there.
in really windy days. Yeah, in really windy days, that's kind of how they act a lot of times. But it doesn't mean that they absolutely won't do anything. It's still worth a try. But if
Oh man, that's what I mean, and I want every bit of this education for ammunition. You know what I mean? I know I'm asking a lot of questions. Usually, I'm the guy that's on the other side, but now I got bros that are good at this, really good at this. So I'm happy, man. I'm gonna ask the questions. I feel a little help right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the wind gets too high, you can't put a bow mounted decoy on because it's
Right.
going to pull you around too much. So you got to go to a different tactic. And, usually in that situation, if you're wanting to do it without a blind, you just need something, something that will conceal you, whether it's a brush pile or whatever,
Right.
And then, waiting for a tom to go into strut and having his feathers hide his head. Yeah, that's often your best time to draw. But I will say this, I hate the shot with a
Yeah.
fan that's up from behind.
The butt shot.
Yeah,
Texas
I don't
shot.
like that shot. There's a lot of people that that like it, to me, the fan hides hides the position. Sometimes the fan will be cocked this way. Sometimes the fan will be cocked this way.
I get what
Position
you're
of that
saying.
bird's
Yeah.
body on the other side of it is a guess a lot of times.
Right.
And I've seen quite a few birds lost with that shot.
You brought up a good point there.
I would draw when they're like that, but I would wait till they turn again broadside before you release broadside, or whatever.
So don't take the Texas heart shot.
I don't like it. I've seen quite a few turkeys lost with that shot.
Okay.
And it's their body morphs between feeding position and upright position and strutting position. That body goes into a bunch of different positions, and when that fan is in front of you, you're guessing where you need to be hitting. And I mean, their vitals are the size of a softball, maybe even a little smaller, about the size of an orange.
Yep.
And literally, that's one of the most important things for bow hunters to know, is where to aim. And the best way that I've ever found to explain to somebody is to divide their body into thirds. So you have a top third line and a bottom third line. And I'm trying to hit that top third line every single time, where that line would go through to divide their body into thirds. That top third line, you want to hit it, and you want to pass your arrow, if you can see both legs, between the legs on the top third line. And regardless of whether he's in strut or upright or anything else. But
that's what Jace Bousman said, the same thing. Jace said, aim higher than you think.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Aim higher than you think.
Always a little, above that half line on that top third line. So to me, you can't really see where that spot is when that fan is blocking you.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people end up shooting them low, and it goes through the bottom of their guts or something like that, and they end up either running off or flying off. And turkeys are tough, man. They're tough. You hit them in that spot I was describing, you'll watch them die. But if you hit them low, I mean, there's a saying with turkeys: high they die, low they go.
High they die, low they go. I like that.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I just got that footage of Danny just sent me the footage of the show coming up, and that bird was dead instantly. Like, I don't know. I don't think he flapped. Did he flap?
No.
I don't even think he flapped.
He flipped.
Killed him instantly, man.
Yeah, it stoned him.
Stoned him. Yeah, there's the term. Stoned him. Let's turn the lights out, man.
Well, dude, I'm gonna be anxious to hear how it goes, and don't be surprised after you spilled the beans on me and Evan if you don't have us show up on your doorstep here in the next month.
Let's go.
I already looked up dates.
You guys know you always got a home. Yeah, let's go, man. You always got a home here. Tell you, man, we'll go kill them.
We appreciate you coming on, Yahsti. It's always
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, brother.
Always a good time talking to you. And this won't be the last time that we have you on. I know that both me and Evan will be doing some hunting with you in the near future.
Let's go.
And we'll jump on and talk about those adventures as soon as we get a chance.
Sounds good, brother. Can't thank you guys enough for having me, man.
No sweat, man. Enjoyed it.
Appreciate you guys.